Is William and Charles now furious that they're coming back? I imagine William is. Was King Charles kind of excited?
Is this a humiliation?
Are they coming back with their tails between their legs?
Well,
are they
a little
coming
bit.
back and are they admitting that the American dream didn't quite work out?
He's the poster boy for privacy who's betrayed the privacy of his closest family. The truth, the real truth, not my truth, is that Harry doesn't have a problem with the press.
Manipulate, blackmail, bully, gaslight, and force the palace into having him.
To destroy me.
Yeah, nobody set out to destroy you. You destroyed yourselves in this country with your ludicrous, hypocritical behaviour. The truth be told, what you just said is complete and utter garbage. Harry and Meghan's romance, engagement and marriage were all greeted with ecstatic joy by the British media, the public and the royal family that they've all now abandoned.
She is coming home. After 6 years, 2 continents, and one very costly experiment in trying to build a life outside royal duties, Meghan Markle is reportedly heading back to Britain. But there is one place she may never be allowed to stand again, the Buckingham Palace balcony. She stood there only twice, on 2 historic mornings, and that may have been the end of it.
Together, I did say that Sussexes are desperate. Desperate to come back to Britain, desperate to find some purpose in life, desperate to get royal approval again so they can somehow be revalidated.
Not the palace itself, and not Britain as a whole. The issue is that narrow stretch of stone above the gates of Buckingham Palace, where royal appearances carry serious meaning. Whatever happens next, a return to that balcony would be a very different matter. And here is where the story gets even more complicated. About a mile away sits a locked cottage connected to a much older royal controversy.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Finally, before I let you go, Andrew, King Charles could soon reveal whether his relationship with Prince Harry has been genuinely repaired, with the Duke of Sussex set to return to the UK next month.
The details surrounding it have been debated for years, and some claims have never been proven. Reports about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex returning to the United Kingdom have been moving quickly, but several versions of the story have mixed confirmed details with speculation. One often repeated claim involves a note Diana allegedly sealed in an envelope in October 1996 and gave to her butler.
By Meghan Markle and hopeless Harry's dismally low standards, this has been an extraordinarily disastrous week, during which the increasingly pathetic prince destroyed what little was left of his fast diminishing reputation and sent his manipulative wife into an unprecedented rage. The difficult Duchess is reported to be beyond furious.
11 months later, she died. That note has been discussed publicly, including during the inquest, but the circumstances surrounding it and the credibility of the person who produced it were disputed. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are expected to return to the United Kingdom this month. Archie is 7 now. Lilibet is 5.
After Harry suffered abject humiliation as his self-styled role as the heroic dragon slayer of the British press descended into excruciating farce. Useless old ginger nuts didn't just fail in his bid to sue the Daily Mail, he fell flat on his dumbstruck face as his fantastically feeble case was all but laughed out of court.
Both are reportedly set to begin at a British school in September, just a couple of weeks away. If that happens, it suggests the decision was made long before the public heard about it. The Telegraph reported the move and used some very telling wording. A private, non-royal residence. No plans to resume royal duties. And the King was informed on Sunday, not consulted.
This nation and people have spoken in their many thousands, saying that they don't want Harry and Meghan on that balcony. And they have a right to not want them on the balcony. Because Meghan and Harry didn't only lie about the family, they lied about the reception that the British people accorded her.
Then came the line that deserves a closer look. They will live in a private, non-royal residence outside London. There are no plans for them to resume royal duties. Read that again! Not a royal residence, not royal duties. The reported plan is for the family to return to Britain while remaining outside the working royal family. Those details could shape the entire story. Now, the balcony.
BS on this story, but hilarious if Harry and Meghan are this delusional. And so every once in a while, we have to pull out one of these stories and call it for what it is.
Meghan Markle has appeared on the Buckingham Palace balcony exactly twice. The first was the 9th of June 2018, just weeks after the wedding. She wore a pale pink Carolina Herrera outfit with a Philip Tracy hat, and the public was still getting used to seeing her as part of the royal family. She looked genuinely thrilled. The second was the 8th of June 2019. She wore navy by Claire Waite Keller, the designer behind her wedding dress. Archie was only about a month old. She looked tired and uncertain, but still smiled during the fly past. That is the full list. 2 appearances, roughly a year apart, and then nothing. And for comparison, the Princess of Wales has appeared on that balcony repeatedly during major royal events over many years. So why was Meghan's time there so brief? That is where the history gets much more complicated. Meghan managed 2 appearances, and according to the public record, the change did not come with a dramatic public argument. Instead, it came through a palace statement. The key date was the 6th of May 2022, during the Platinum Jubilee period.
I suspect if the royal family revealed everything they know about Meghan and Harry, the 2 grifters might be considering looking toward other planets on which to live.
The palace made it clear that the balcony appearance would be limited to working members of the royal family. No names were needed. The message was broad, but the implication was obvious. During the Jubilee flypast, the Sussexes watched from a window rather than joining the group on the balcony. Photos showed them looking out from inside the building, separated from the main royal gathering. And the pattern continued. At the coronation in May 2023, Harry attended without Meghan. He sat among other guests and later returned to the United States. There was no balcony appearance for either of them that day.
The public funds that were used to refurbish their home here in the UK, this is the latest step in their split from Britain. Financially free.
So the balcony question is not simply about one event. It is about a policy that was publicly announced and has shaped later royal appearances. There has been no public announcement reversing that position, which makes the issue especially important if the Sussexes are now returning to Britain. Then there is Frogmore Cottage, because this is where the story gets more tangible. Frogmore Cottage sits on the Frogmore estate within Windsor's home park. It is a Grade 2 listed property with 5 bedrooms, and it was once the Sussexes' British home. The late Queen provided the residence to Harry and Meghan in 2019, shortly after their wedding. It became the only home they occupied as a married couple while still carrying out royal duties.
It's not just about, stripping him of his titles. How is this man living in a 30-bedroom mansion, which he arrogantly, for years, has refused to vacate?
After they stepped back from those duties and moved primarily to the United States, the cottage became part of the wider question about where they belonged within the royal household. They handed the keys back in June 2023. But the bigger question is simple. Who has actually lived there since? According to reports, the property has remained unused. Not reassigned, not turned into another royal residence, but sitting empty. A 5-bedroom house on Crown land, close to Windsor, with its future still uncertain. That is a striking situation. Picture the place, a historic 5-bedroom property, carefully maintained simply because it is a listed building.
Even if this were a normal family holiday, I struggle to understand why anyone would invite an individual to join them on it whom they were sufficiently convinced had behaved in a manner so revolting that they had removed his income, titles and home and publicly humiliated him in front of the entire world.
Rooms that once had furniture and family life are now quiet. A nursery that was prepared for a baby is no longer being used. And every year, the sounds of royal events carry across Windsor while the house remains empty. 3 years later, the public position remains unclear. No long-term occupant has been announced, and no permanent new purpose has been confirmed. There was reportedly an attempt to offer the cottage to Prince Andrew in 2023. He ultimately did not move there and later took up accommodation elsewhere on the Sandringham estate. That decision has attracted plenty of speculation.
Meghan has moved him over, and he has paid the price of, he's betrayed his family, he's betrayed his country, he's betrayed his own interests.
But it is important not to turn speculation into fact. We do not know that his choice had anything to do with Harry and Meghan, or with who had previously lived there. The reason for declining the property has not been publicly established. Now, consider the history and expense behind the building. The cottage dates back to the early 1800s and was originally constructed during Queen Charlotte's time. Historical records indicate that it began as a much smaller property. By the early 2000s, it had been divided into several separate residences for estate workers. Multiple families could live there, with separate entrances and kitchens. Then, in 2019, the property was extensively renovated and transformed back into one larger residence for Harry and Meghan as they prepared to start their family.
Markle's first project gets dumped, and now they're reportedly under pressure by Netflix to deliver what they implicitly promised, which is stories about the royal family.
The renovation bill reportedly reached £2.4 million from the sovereign grant, meaning public money was involved. The contrast is striking. A property that originally cost only hundreds of pounds to build, eventually required millions to restore and convert into a modern family home. But there is an important detail that should not be skipped. Harry and Meghan did repay the renovation costs. In September 2020, the Crown received £2.4 million, with part of the amount reportedly offset against rent and other costs they owed. The accounts record the repayment, and that changes the picture. The money was not simply left unpaid. But another detail matters even more: their legal status at the property. Harry and Meghan did not own Frogmore Cottage. They had what was described as a license to occupy, rather than outright ownership. That distinction meant the property remained connected to the Crown, rather than becoming their personal asset. Their permission was due to expire in March 2022. They reportedly sought an extension in February, but a renewal was not announced. Then, in January 2023, after the release of Harry's memoir, reports emerged that they had been asked to leave.
It just strikes me that these two, they've tried pretty much everything, but the royal door has slammed.
By June 2023, they had returned the keys. So the timeline is important, but it does not prove every theory surrounding it. The public record shows an existing occupancy arrangement, an attempted renewal, and eventually the end of that arrangement. Whether the timing was connected to the memoir is a matter of interpretation, not established fact. What is clear is that the cottage remained Crown property throughout. The Sussexes could occupy it under the agreement, but they did not have the kind of ownership that would allow them to treat the house as a permanent personal possession. The permission eventually ended, and the Sussexes were left without the long-term use of Frogmore Cottage. That is the bigger point. The property was never theirs to own. It was a residence they were allowed to occupy, much like the balcony was a place they could appear when royal duties permitted it. So when that arrangement ended, attention naturally shifted to where they could stay when visiting Britain.
Studies show that strength training burns more fat than cardio alone and is critical for maintaining muscle mass and bone density as we age.
On July 10, the King and Queen reportedly hosted Harry, Meghan, and their children at Highgrove. It was described as a warm family meeting and one of their more significant private gatherings in a long time. The family later visited Althorp, Diana's childhood home in Northamptonshire, as guests of her brother, Earl Spencer. For a few days, the Sussexes were staying at an estate connected directly to Harry's late mother. Then came the social media post. Meghan shared photos from the summer visit, including images of Harry walking along a hedge-lined path with Archie and Lilibet. The children appeared to be carrying flowers. Diana is buried on an island in the middle of the lake at Althorp, so the images immediately drew attention. Many viewers naturally connected the flowers and the setting with Diana's grave. But there is an important distinction. Nobody publicly stated that the children were visiting Diana's grave in those photos. The images leave that open to interpretation. And that is what made the post so intriguing. Rather than explaining every detail, the photos allowed viewers to make their own connection. 2 children, flowers in their hands, walking through the grounds of the place where their grandmother is buried.
Is an utterly damning piece of writing. She writes, "I'm afraid Cookie Queens is just the latest proof that when it comes to creating films or TV that people want to watch, the Sussexes are talentless. Unless, of course, they are pulling back the royal curtain and talking about their very favourite subject themselves."
The message was never spelled out, but the imagery was powerful enough to get people talking. And that is where the story stopped looking like an ordinary family holiday and started becoming controversial. One reported royal source described the king as genuinely shocked. Another claimed that even people who normally avoid commenting on Harry and Meghan were uncomfortable, saying, "Some family moments are simply too sacred to share." That wording is important because the criticism is not really about one photograph. It is about the wider question of privacy and how private family moments are handled when they happen around the royal family. Harry and Meghan are reportedly preparing to spend more time in the UK with their children after years living in the United States. And that raises an obvious question. How will those private family relationships work this time?
Posted a bizarre video on her social media yesterday, which sent several people into absolute meltdown.
The Althorp visit became part of that conversation because it involved a deeply personal place connected to Harry's mother, Diana. The photographs were shared publicly soon afterward, and that naturally created speculation about how members of the family viewed the decision. There have also been claims about Earl Spencer's reaction, including suggestions that he was not particularly troubled by the attention. But those claims should be treated carefully unless directly confirmed. Althorp is both a family home and a major heritage attraction, so increased public interest can have a financial side as well. That creates an interesting contrast. Althorp operates as a historic estate with visitors, while the royal family has a very different relationship with privacy, tradition, and public image. So here is the key point. I would not say the Althorp photographs caused the Sussexes' current situation. There is no evidence for that. But they may have reinforced concerns that private family access can quickly become part of a public narrative. And that matters even more if Harry and Meghan are now planning a return to Britain, where the line between family life and public attention has always been extremely thin.
Diana refused, and finally she elected to go into therapy, and then she started to turn her life around, spiritually and emotionally and constructively.
The story is no longer simply about where Harry and Meghan lived before. It is about what kind of life they could realistically build if they spend more time in Britain. They are reportedly looking at a private home outside London, not a palace or an official royal residence. The Cotswolds have been mentioned in reports, while Northamptonshire has also entered the conversation. If the latter were true, it would place them relatively close to Althorp, Diana's former family home. But the reported move comes with an important distinction. Living in Britain does not automatically mean receiving royal duties, a royal residence, or guaranteed taxpayer-funded security. Harry has previously challenged the government's approach to his security arrangements in court, so the issue remains particularly sensitive. His position has been that security should reflect the risks he faces when visiting the UK, while the government's position has been different.
Yeah, this is extraordinary. This is a story just breaking today that it has been revealed that Meghan was furious and upset.
There has also been no major palace announcement confirming the reported relocation. Much of the coverage has instead relied on unnamed sources described as being close to the couple. That means some details remain unconfirmed, and it is worth separating what has actually been announced from what is being reported. Meanwhile, the couple's Montecito property, purchased in 2020, has reportedly been linked to possible plans to sell. The house is a large, expensive property, and its ongoing costs have become part of the speculation surrounding their next move. If the reports are accurate, the contrast is striking. A huge California mansion on one side, and a private British home outside London on the other. The next chapter may look very different from the life they built after leaving royal duties.
That her and Harry on their recent trip to Britain, where she was never seen, nor were the kids, but they went to Highgrove to see the King and everything.
While Meghan reportedly looks for a place to live in England, attention is also turning toward what happens to Frogmore Cottage. Reports suggest that officials have been considering different options for the property, with one possibility being to divide the building back into 2 separate homes. If that happens, it would effectively reverse part of the major renovation carried out in 2019. Think about what that would mean. A property once converted into one large family residence could potentially be returned to the smaller units it contained before Harry and Meghan moved in. Walls and layouts could be changed again so that multiple households could use the building. That would be a remarkable reversal after millions were spent on the earlier renovation, but it is important to stress that this is reportedly an option under consideration, not a confirmed plan. So why not simply give the Sussexes the keys again if they are returning to Britain? Because their previous arrangement at Frogmore ended, and any future use would require a new agreement, the fact that the property is empty does not automatically mean it can simply be handed back to them. And that brings us back to the balcony. The palace's 2022 statement said appearances would be limited to working members of the royal family. That wording matters because being part of the family and being a working royal are not the same thing. A person can remain a member of the royal family without carrying out official royal duties. Likewise, paying back renovation costs does not create ownership of a crown property, and a previous balcony appearance does not guarantee another one. Meghan appeared on that balcony twice, but those appearances were tied to her role at the time. If the Sussexes return without resuming royal duties, there is no automatic path back to that platform. That is the real distinction running through this entire story. Returning to Britain is one decision, returning to working royal life is another, and the two should not be treated as the same thing. Next June, the Guardsmen will march, the flypast will pass over them all, and the doors behind that famous balcony will open for the working royals. If the current reports are accurate, Meghan could be living privately in Britain, watching those scenes from a home outside London, rather than standing among the royal family. The king did not need to offer a royal residence. The reported move is about returning to the country, not returning to official royal life. And that distinction may be the biggest part of the entire story. But there is still one name we have not really discussed, and one question I genuinely want to hear your answer to. If the balcony remains closed and Frogmore is no longer their home, what exactly did Harry believe he was bringing his children back to? Because the person facing that question may not be Charles. It may be William, and whatever happens next could say a lot about the future relationship between the two brothers. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe for more, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Harry and Meghan can build a lasting life in Britain outside the working royal family? Let me know!